From Twilight, Solace to Forever, a journey of unexpected love. This is a deeply emotional journey of love, strength, and self-discovery. Often, love finds us in the most unexpected places and moments, when we least anticipate it. As twilight descended, casting the world in shades of purple and gray, Steph walked along the narrow trail that wound its way from the library where she worked her evening shift. The weight of her day seemed to cling to her like a dark cloud, tired eyes, aching shoulders, a mind worn thin, but the cool evening breeze and the soft rustle of leaves through the trees offered a fleeting sense of peace, a balm for her weary soul. She paused, her eyes drawn to a wildflower that had somehow managed to bloom at the edge of the path, its vibrant purple petals swaying in the dimming light, daring the darkness to take it. It stood alone against the encroaching night, delicate but unyielding. A small, wistful smile curved Steph's lips as she crouched to admire it. How strange to find beauty here, she thought, her fingers brushing lightly against the fragile stem, as though afraid it might vanish at her touch. But as she stood up, something shifted in the air, a coldness that seemed to crawl along her skin, tightening the knot of unease in her stomach. A prickling sensation, like invisible eyes boring into her back, made the hairs on her neck stand on end. She spun around sharply, her pulse quickening. The path behind her was empty, the shadows stretching long and deep, silent as the grave. Nothing. She exhaled, half laughing to herself, trying to shake off the feeling. "Stop it, Steph," she whispered under her breath. "You're just tired." Yet, the nagging feeling refused to loosen its grip. Unbeknownst to her, she wasn't alone. Nelson watched from the safety of the trees, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum, each beat echoing in his ears. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a designer shirt that strained slightly over his round belly, a man of contradictions. He was powerful and wealthy, yes, but painfully shy, a prisoner to his own self-doubt. He hadn't meant to follow her, not really. But when he saw her emerge from the library, he couldn't stop himself. The way her light brown hair swayed with each step, the quiet strength in her posture, it captivated him in a way he couldn't explain. He watched her crouch beside the flower, her fingers brushing the delicate stem, and something inside him stirred, a strange ache that seemed to reach deep into his chest. He wanted to step out, to speak to her, but fear held him in place like an iron chain. Instead, he hid, crouching low behind a tree, watching her every move. He didn't know why he couldn't tear himself away, even as his palms grew slick with sweat. Then, as if fate had turned its cruel eye upon him, Steph suddenly turned her head, her brow furrowing as though she could feel his gaze. Nelson's heart lurched in his throat. He panicked, jerking back too quickly. The crunch of twigs underfoot seemed to shatter the silence like thunder. Steph froze, her wide eyes searching the darkness, and for a moment, everything seemed to hold its breath. She clutched her bag to her chest, her fingers white-knuckled. A cold sweat beaded on her forehead. The shadows seemed to stretch toward her, growing longer, darker, unnatural. She didn't wait another second. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, she turned and fled down the path, her footsteps pounding against the earth as though she were running from something far worse than just the chill of the evening. Nelson stood there, his body trembling with the weight of what he had just done, a horrible knot of guilt tightening in his stomach. He watched her disappear into the fading light, her figure swallowed by the shadows, leaving him alone with his regret and the cruel certainty that he had frightened her. But as the last echoes of her footsteps faded, the night seemed to draw closer around him, the trees whispering secrets he couldn't understand, the darkness pressing in with a cold, suffocating grip.